Yeah, we're discussing a little bit about the dichotomy between European continental philosophers and theism, especially as projected by our Sampradaya. And, Nietzsche, he proposes that God is dead. So, of course, everyone is very scandalized by this. In fact, not everyone. In fact, probably 70% or something of the intelligentsia today pretty much agrees with him because no one of any serious intellectual caliber is coming forward to defend uh, theism. Very few intellectuals today who will take a stand on theism. And if you focus especially on the Judeo Christian version, uh, as I was just saying before the recording was turned on, uh, there's this great sermon by Jonathan Edwards called Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, where he compares the Jiva souls to spiders uh, that are being dangled by a thin silk line over a fire. And God is debating whether or not to just throw us into the fire because, after all, we're so damned and useless and sinful. Well, this kind of thing was widely preached up until the 20th century, but after Nietzsche, everybody sort of calmed down. And whether they liked the idea that God is dead or not, uh, pretty much everyone subscribes to that as a starting point in any philosophical discussion. Of course, the Christians hate that. But as I was saying, there may be some truth to the idea that this angry God who wants to destroy uh, the souls that he created, uh, maybe this is not such a popular idea now. Uh, of course, we don't particularly ascribe to that because we see that Krishna is a loving God. So our conception of divinity is at variance with the Judeo Christian version. And so I was explaining that, be that as it may, I, I find Nietzsche particularly off putting, although any survey course of continental philosophy will want you to take a good look at what he says. I don't find him to be a philosopher in the strict sense of a rigorous system. He's a thinker who applies his vast erudition to some of the problems facing philosophy, but I don't see him as a rigorous philosopher. And after all, in his heresy, uh, he, he's said to have gone mad either through syphilis or nervous breakdown. But I mentioned him because uh, he had this idea of eternal recurrence. And the idea is somehow, maybe you only have one life, but you have to live it again and again and again and again. Uh, and I found this interesting. He doesn't really believe in reincarnation, but his idea is you have exactly the same life and you will live it out over and over and over eternally in various quantum universes. Uh, it's kind of a conceit. I'm not sure he absolutely believed in the veracity of that concept, or was it just a sort of a thought experiment? And he sort of parallels uh, Albert Camus, the absurdist existential philosopher, who said that, all right, maybe you're rolling a rock up the hill every day. It gets to the top of the hill and it rolls down on the other side, and you have to do it again. But we should imagine that Sisyphus is happy. So he finds the universe meaningless, but then adds a caveat that it's up to you to discover your bliss in the meaninglessness. Well, Nietzsche is kind of similar with his idea of eternal recurrence because he's kind of saying, well, you should live your life as if this is the only life you have, and as if you have to do it again and again and again. So, what kind of life will you live? Will you be able to accept everything that you're doing and be happy because of that? Or live each moment as if it's a valuable moment? Uh, so this idea of eternal recurrence, it's kind of interesting. It sort of overlaps the idea of reincarnation and karma and being born over and over and over until finally you get it right. So I was sort of studying this principle and I found a YouTube video that connected film with eternal recurrence. And there was a film of a Japanese man who every day wakes up at 6 o'clock, gets on the train, goes to the hospital, cleans toilets all day, comes home and reads a book and go to sleep. And this is his daily routine. And the, a Japanese filmmaker follows him and films his daily routine. And the film just goes on like that. Just there's no conflict, there's no resolution, there's no happy ending. It just shows this man going through his daily routine. Uh, but the conclusion is that he's happy, he's enlightened, he's full of bliss because he accepts everything that he's doing. So the idea of Nietzsche's eternal recurrence is that even if you're stuck in exactly the same day over and over, you should perfect that. And this idea carries over to a film called Groundhog Day. I don't know if you've seen that. It's pretty cool. It's about this man who's trapped on the same day. And at first, uh, he's in despair. He finds that it's the most terrible thing that could happen to him. He tries to kill himself, but he comes back the same day and everything is the same. So at some point, he harnesses all his ability to perfect himself and improve himself day by day until he has a perfect day and the cycle stops repeating. So there's something like that, the idea of samsara and repeated birth and death until you get it right. And then there's just another film similar to this called Synecdoche, New York, with Philip Seymour Hoffman, where a man tries to discover who he is by writing a play. And he wants to be absolutely honest in writing this play. Uh, so then he rents a warehouse and uh, pays actors. And the actors enact his life. But he feels like that's not really enough. He should get the backstory of the actors in the play that he's written about his life. So he has actors portray the backstory of the actors who are developing his life story. And so it goes until he's occupying 25 warehouses with studios that have cities built, uh, developing his life story. And I mention this because my computer just bombed, crashed, and I had a memoir that I'm writing, I'm up to about 200,000 pages, 200,000 words. I don't know, maybe 300 pages. And so my computer crashed, dissolving 2 years of work. So the question becomes, should I then spend another 2 years reconstructing the last 2 years of work, describing my memories? Or is this some sort of satanic eternal recurrence that Nietzsche predicted before he went mad? And so, as I'm staring at my blank computer screen with the Apple logo and the progress bar that doesn't progress anywhere, I'm faced with the dilemma of detachment. So, how much detached should we become from our memories, our life, our work in this material world? It's an interesting question because when I discovered that my computer had crashed with my memoirs on it, I suddenly felt sort of a blissful freedom. Oh, that's great. Now I can go back to zero. Rupa Goswami, poses this sort of problem in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says everything will help us if we can see it in connection with the center. On the other hand, the kind of exclusive renunciation practiced by the Shankarites and Buddhists is not recommended by our line. We are concerned to harmonize things so that everything will remind us of our duty towards the Absolute and encourage us to dedicate ourselves to Him. And then he quotes the shloka from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which starts to explore two different sides of renunciation, Falgu Vairagya and Yukta Vairagya. He says, Prapanchikataya Budya Harisambandhavashtuna Mumukshubi Parityago Vairagyam Falgu Katyate. To neglect the environment, thinking that it is filled with undesirable material things, won't help us. That is not correct. Everything within the environment should remind us of the Absolute. Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatartam Upayunshitaha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Uchite. Everything within the environment should remind us of the Absolute. In that spirit we should move, thinking, accept me and connect me with the spirit of our Lord. So, one solution is to grab my computer and throw it in the trash. And I'm just saying, who needs all this technology? Why are we doing this? It's a waste of my time. I must dedicate myself to Krishna. Or I can think, well, this computer has given me a lot of service. It's helped me to communicate with the devotees. I've published several books on it. I should work hard to keep it going. So then my trip to the electronics store to buy a lightning cable suddenly becomes a devotional act. Or not. Or I should simply throw it all in the trash and go to India and bow down before the deities and say, that's enough words. Accept me and connect me with the service of our Lord. When the environment is seen with the correct vision, everything will help encourage and excite us in our service to the center. So getting back to Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, it's interesting because you could live exactly the same life in dedication and thereby achieve perfection. Or you can live exactly the same life in misery and achieve eternal rebirth in this material world of darkness and illusion. Consider the Japanese man cleaning toilets in a hospital in Tokyo. Let's say he's cleaning toilets at the Mat in Navadvip, and every morning he does exactly the same thing. But by doing so, he achieves more than liberation. Uh, Mukunda, another name for Krishna, means the giver of liberation. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj told me it means mukti kukutsit dadati, someone who gives dadati, uh, that which makes liberation look ugly, kukutsit, mukti. So it may be possible that by cleaning toilets, you're going beyond birth and death. Or you may simply be locked in some terrible karmic situation. That's up to you. He says everything within the environment should remind us of the absolute. That's not an easy task. That may require reading libraries of books, and it may not. You may be able to get there just by fixing a car engine. Um, I think of Chidananda Prabhu. He met Srila Prabhupada because his car broke down. And he's in the middle of the street in Culver City. And Chidananda Prabhu, I think he became Siddhanti Maharaj. He walks along and finds this ancient Indian sadhu looking at his car. And he said, well, what's wrong here? Maybe I can help you. And this way he met Srila Prabhupada. Jayananda Prabhu, he was a carpenter. Jesus was a carpenter. Leonard Cohen, Jesus was a carpenter when he walked upon the water, and he spent a long time watching from his lonely wooden tower. But Jayananda, he created the first Ratayatra cart, and on the basis of that, they made another Ratayatra cart, and pretty soon they had a giant Ratayatra festival in New York City, where Srila Prabhupada led the kirtan and the procession, and thousands of devotees attended and were ecstatic. And Srila Prabhupada saw this as the culmination of his life's work, which began when, as a little boy, he used to play with the Ratayatra cart with his father, Gormohan Day. And here, some 70 years later, he was in New York leading a giant Ratayatra procession. And Jayananda Prabhu got all kinds of credit for that. And as far as everyone is concerned, he went back to Godhead. So he achieved enlightenment through carpentry. When the environment is seen with the correct vision, everything will help encourage and excite us in our service to the center. We are living in an organic whole, a system. And that system is composed by the owner and owned, the possessor of the potency and the different types of potency, Shakti, Shaktiman. The Lord's potency is dynamic, and that dynamicism is always producing rasa, or the flavor of ecstasy. So here we find a very distinct vision of theism from that poor, impoverished conception given out by so many other churches and religious groups who would have us believe that God is a punisher and there's a set of rules that you must follow. And if you don't follow those rules correctly, you will be punished. And sin and damnation will be upon you. This is a great sermon in a book called Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, where the young Joyce is at seminary. And there's a preacher who comes around every now and then to collect souls and convert them into hardworking priests. And he gives one of the best hell hot, sin black sermons you've ever heard or read. It's really great. It's very like dark Irish Catholicism. But the Emporium of Rasa that is Krishna, this is a much sweeter, much happier concept. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I think, after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is the greatest theologian of the 20th century. There's no doubt in my mind. You can read all the Catholic and Protestant theologians, and you can read even, and I risk being called a heretic, even Srila Prabhupada himself, Bhaktivedanta Swami. He doesn't, in his writings and teachings, he doesn't reach the same heights of pure theology as Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Although, when he first came to New York and was preaching in the early days of the Krishna consciousness movement, it was all about rasa and ecstasy. And many people joined on that basis. I know Bhakti Siddhar Goswami, his basic thesis is always ecstasy. Krishna consciousness means ecstasy. Stay high forever. That was our point. But somehow these teachings got into the hands of lesser qualified individuals who saw ritual and rules as the basis of achieving a kind of liberation. They changed the flavor of Krishna consciousness, I think. It's surprising to me to find that so many of the devotees in the higher echelons of the ISKCON movement, especially in the early days, without naming any names, but so many of them came from a Jewish background. And it's interesting if you study the nature of the Judeo tradition, that they're very much concerned with the law. This may be why so many of our Jewish friends are great lawyers, because the idea is God makes the law. And after that, the whole point is to follow the law. And even to a certain extent, God himself should follow his own law. Why would he create a law and not follow it himself? But this makes God into a contingent being, where Srila Sridhar Maharaj points out, echoing Hegel, he says God is by himself and for himself. He's not a dependent being. There may be some law out there, but he can make or mar. He can create the law and then change the law. That's his business. So Karma Kanda also relies on this idea that, well, God has spelled out what the proper form of karma is, and if you just follow that, you'll have good karma and be promoted. Or if you're a liberationist, you follow the rules of the Shankara Sampradaya, and you will get liberation, mukti. But Krishna consciousness gives you something that makes mukti look sad. What is that? Ecstasy, bliss. So while I think sincerely many of those who formed missions and established temples wanted to run the temples along the lines of a church. And then when you have a church, some people are in and some people are out. And when you push people out, it makes the people who are in feel happier because we're part of an inside group. Uh, but I don't believe this is at all what was being preached by Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He was not interested in excluding everyone, rather including everyone. That's why we had the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I remember when I was a young man in Los Angeles in the 1970s, the Los Angeles temple extended about 10 blocks down the street and around the corner from Watseka Avenue in Culver City. And in front of the temple every morning while we were chanting our japa, you could see uh, just a group of Black devotees over there from downtown LA or from Africa, just a group of Indian devotees wandering around, maybe life members on their way to Disneyland. um, just women devotees. There was uh, the Spanish Quarter, where devotees from Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Mexico, Los Angeles, California, they were chanting their japa. And so it went. We always had, in Los Angeles, we had a wide selection of people from all over the world, French devotees, Canadian devotees, you know, devotees from Australia, always coming and going. And you really got a sense that this is an inclusive movement. This is not for white people, or it's not for Indian people. It's not for, red, green, blue, or yellow people. It's for spirit souls who are collecting together under the banner of discovering ecstasy through the holy name of Krishna. And this is what was being preached in the 60s and 70s. Now it's all about, I don't know, uh, how elite can you be? How much of a Prabhupada man are you? Do you have the Prabhupada brand stamped on your arm? Do you have the Prabhupada tattoo? Do you have a collection of his photos? But of course, this is the danger that we always run in any society dedicated towards divinity or God. There's a danger of becoming a sort of a personality cult. And then you have the number one member of the cult, who's the guru. And people fight to get into his inside circle. And once you're in the inside circle, you get to control properties and cars and monies and bank accounts. And you get to decide who's in and who's out. And it's a very sad uh, development. I I came to Navadvip Dham when there were only about 8 or 10 people living in the mat there. Hari Charan, Krishna Sharan Prabhu, Govinda Maharaj, of course. Anyways, I deviate. It's just getting back to the Emporium of Rasa. So our version of theism is an ecstatic version, um, but it's not an exclusive one. The Lord's potency is dynamic, and that dynamicism is always producing rasa, or the flavor of ecstasy. Dynamic movement is a necessity in his Leela. It cannot be eliminated. And that movement is always producing a novel ecstasy, which feeds every atom of the spiritual world. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj is describing the dynamic of the spiritual world. It's not a dead thing. So in Prapanajivanamrita, he talks about positive and progressive immortality. Immortality is not a dead thing. It's strange that in English, the word immortality, it's it's an idea contraposed against mortality. So instead of saying amritam, you have non-death. There's death and there's non-death. But what non-death is, we don't really know. Whereas amrita in Sanskrit, it not only means non-death, it also means nectar. So this is positive and progressive immortality. That movement is always producing a novel ecstasy which feeds every atom of the spiritual world. And that transcendental abode, Krishna, is the center who attracts everything and enthuses rasa and ananda, ecstasy and joy within everything. This is the nature of the movement of the Absolute. It is not static, but dynamic, filled with movement. And that movement is pratipadam purnamritas vadana. At every point, every step, it produces a new type of joy, which is infinite. It is not the stale and sterile joy we find here. This is the proper conception of the Absolute, the organic whole, which is always working and moving, is full, and its fullness is ever new. So take note, theologians, this is a description of the dynamic Absolute. It is not standing or static. It moves in such a way that at every second, every minute, it is always producing new, unknown, infinite joy. And we can purchase that joy only by paying the highest price, self-sacrifice. That ticket is very valuable, which can give us admission into the plane of automatic moving joy. Automatic moving joy. Buy your ticket now, which is ever new at every second. And the ticket is wholesale self-sacrifice. So the ticket is not cheap. Wholesale self-sacrifice is not cheap. It's an expensive ticket. That sacrifice is joyful, and one may taste that wonderful joy even here in this world, where every moment everything is dying. It is give and take. If we want to gain something noble, we must also give. We must be generous in our dedication, and then we shall receive amply from that side. So be generous in your dedication, ladies and gentlemen. Anything less is spiritual death. Wholesale self-dedication is the price, and in return, we shall be filled up with ecstasy. So the problem becomes, well, what does wholesale self-dedication look like? Um, well, in my own personal case, I cannot say that I've achieved wholesale self-dedication. I'm here trying to shine some light on this book, but wholesale self-dedication is not easy. Our basic concept in that direction is to try to put yourself at the disposal of saints who have a taste of wholesale self-dedication and try to see if their wholesale self-dedication can rub off on you somehow. And this is also a risky business because there are so many charlatans, so many phonies and fakes, uh, but also so many sincere souls who have tried their hand at self-dedication, and sometimes they're at 80% or 75% or 50%. But even that's better than the void. It's better than no dedication. It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved. So we may have come in contact with a sadhu or a saint who is farther along the path than we are, and we follow that person. But sometimes, like the tortoise and the hare, the hare sits down and takes a nap under the tree, and the tortoise has to look back at him and say, "Hey, come on, are we going?" No, all right, well, I'm going to try to continue this path. So sometimes we're fortunate and we're blessed with a Govinda Maharaj or a Sridhar Maharaj or a Bhaktivedanta Swami. And sometimes we do our best to muddle along in the association that we have, trying to see, well, where's my self-dedication? Where's my dedication to Krishna here? To not only to Krishna, but to Guru. In my case, I've tried different things. My best service seems to be speaking like this theologically, or constructing books like this one. I made this, you know. These are all Srila Sridhar Maharaj's words and his ideas and concepts, but I had to put gas in the car and find the missing gear on the printer when the printer didn't work, and sit down behind an IBM Selectric typewriter and crank out 50,000 words and then go parse it very carefully for mistakes and errors, and reconstruct it again, and look up the verses in old books in libraries. We didn't have the internet back then. So I was able to do a kind of service, and I'm still trying to do service to the book. So there's Guru Seva, Sadhu Seva, Granth Seva. You do your best to dedicate yourself according to your capacity. Some people have a great capacity. There was Udamanyu Prabhu, Srila Sridhar Maharaj called him Vikram Seva. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. Udamanyus Chavikravan. He was Vikravan. It means mighty, the mighty Udamanyu. And the mighty Udamanyu, he brought thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into the mission so that books like this could be printed and temples could be built. His service was different than mine. He worked very hard and brought in a lot of money. Some people can do that. I don't know how to get money. It's not my particular genius, but use your genius. That sacrifice is joyful. One may taste that wonderful joy even here in this world, where every moment everything is dying. Wholesale dedication is the price, and in return, we shall be filled up with ecstasy. We shall feel that we are in the midst of an ocean of joy. At present, we are searching after a joyous feeling, like one who searches for a glass of water in the midst of the desert. But by dedication, we shall find that we are in an ocean of joy whose soothing sweetness is increasing at every moment. Wow. I really love that book, Loving Search for the Lost Servant, because every line in it is concentrated, dense, amritam. People think that by going back to the Prapana Jivanamritam and translating the original Sanskrit, they'll be able to dive deeper into the reality described by Srila Sri Ramakrishna, the reality of surrender. Or by reading Sharanagati in the original Bengali, they'll get a taste of what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is trying to describe. But every line in search for Sri Krishna, every line in Sri Guru and His Grace, every line in the loving search for the lost servant is concentrated nectar. It's like concentrated condensed milk. If you want to make milk sweets, you can go out and buy milk and boil it down, but there's condensed milk on the market. It's sweet and condensed. So I think that The Loving Search for the Lost Servant is a book like that. It's hard for me to just pick it up and read from cover to cover. I'll read a paragraph or two and just go, wow, self-dedication. What is that? How do I achieve that? So I don't want to waste any more of your precious, valuable Sunday. I can't really, I'm looking on my cell phone. I can only see Pranashish. Is there anyone else in the meeting? Hello?
Yeah, all the gang are there.
Oh, I don't know what button to push to see everybody.
7.
Yes, we are here.
Advai here as well.
All right. Sound off. Roll call.
Hari Priya's here as well. Mahayogi, thank you so much.
Oh, okay. So I'm doing this on my cell phone because my computer is broken. I can only see myself looking at my wall of books behind me.
Full class today.
I speak better when I can see the people who are in front of me.
So Nietzsche was right, Maharaj. Eternal occurrency. I can listen to this talk every day, and I'll be happy.
Well, I just, I was trying to find out the football scores on YouTube or something, and I saw Nietzsche, Eternal Recurrence, and I thought, well, I'll look at that. And it was interesting video connecting that idea to different films that have been made. And
yeah, it's a common idea. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it,
Yeah, I suppose so. Like I said, Nietzsche turns me off, so I haven't really studied that.
Yeah, I mean, the world of word jugglery, it's there at Chintia Beta Beta, isn't it? Oh, it's eternal recurrence, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his idea is, I think, very valid if you think, am I living the kind of life that if I was given the choice to live again, but I had to live the exact same thing. I can't really change the channel on it. I have to have the same friends, the same job, read the same books, like that. Would I be happy repeating that experience? Or how does one go through one's daily, and I think of Advai too, because his question a couple of weeks ago blew me away. How do you go through something seemingly mundane and yet achieve a divine state? Because if we live in a temple, if you're in an ashram and your friends tell you, number one, ashram leader, he's an enlightened being, and we're making soup for him, then okay, you get it. Everything makes sense. You're being directed in service towards a saint. And if you have to put your boots on and go down the road and walk into a store and buy the ingredients to make the soup. It's all connected. That's all part of your divine servant. If somebody tells you, oh, didn't you know? That man is a rogue, he's a rascal, he's Jeffrey Epstein. You're like, oh no, I'm making soup for Jeffrey Epstein, and I thought that was some sort of divine holy. I've really been fooled, I've been bamboozled, I've been cheated. But yet, if you're in the ashram or the monastery and you're surrounded by the divine iconography of the monastery, there's Jesus crucified up on the wall, and the monks are chanting Gregorian hymns, or you can hear the mridanga being slapped and pounded out there in the Nat Mandir. As long as you're surrounded by those holy trappings, you feel yourself to be in harmony with the divine mission. The problem is, how do you do that when you have to function away from the ashram? So I have been in situations, I remember I was stranded in the airport in Frankfurt, Germany, after having preached in Eastern Germany. Hungary at the time was communist. Different communist countries, I was in Austria, Hungary, like that, Eastern Germany, East Berlin. And I was leaving the airport in Frankfurt, completely exhausted. I had no energy left in my batteries, and I had to take passport photos. And I look at the photo of myself, completely burned out. And I went through security, and there was an Israeli security agent there, lovely young woman, who opened up my typewriter and looked for clues about something. She saw I had books in Russian, Hungarian, I had books in Sanskrit and Bengali, and she clearly, and I was dressed in my dhoti, I had my danda and everything, and she looked at me like, this guy is very suspicious. She wanted to, but everything she asked me, I had an answer for, and it was a good answer. So I could see I was charming her, but she kept me so long that I missed my flight. And when I flew back to San Jose, it took them like 2 months to send me my typewriter. But I remember walking through that airport, just feeling completely disconnected. And so, we all have moments like that. Are we actively involved in service? If I help buy, concrete to construct a building somewhere, is that automatically a transcendental act because the person constructing the building says he's the new Acharya or something? Maybe it is. I don't know. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is telling us, try to develop the correct point of view, the correct vision, and you'll see what dedication is and what it isn't. We depended on Govinda Maharaj to help us with that, and others as well. Now we have the Sangha. The Sangha here, it kind of keeps me honest, because whatever I'm doing during the week, I have to think, will I be able to face Advai Krishna? If I scream at the bus driver because he lets me off at the wrong stop, will I be able to face Pranashish Prabhu on Sunday and talk about Krishna, reality, the beautiful, and all those things? Or am I just a faker? So sometimes this sort of pressure. I see a message from Meenakshi. I can't see all these things because I'm on my cell phone. I don't know how to operate. I don't know how to operate a Zoom call on my cell phone. But there's, I think, something in the chat. Anyways, I'm rambling because my computer is in front of me and it's broken, and I'm waiting for it to do something. But Rupa Goswami's verse, you know, where he describes Falgu Vairagya versus Yukta Vairagya, it really gets to the heart of your ethical behavior, my ethical behavior. What am I doing? It's nice to think all these beautiful thoughts, but what actions should I take now to further my dedication? I can't really speak to that, so I have to leave the meeting. I have to try to think of something else to justify my existence.
Well,
I'm looking.
I was thinking about Yukta Vairagya, and there's always different ways of looking at something. So, for example, Srila Prabhupada would say, do what's necessary, right? Yukta Vairagya, do what's necessary. But Srila Maharaj would say, do what's practical.
Yes, you know.
There's no point breaking your back. And
of the two, you know, Prabhupada was really good at creating this grand international project. And part of that meant that he had to service what he had created by constantly writing letters and giving instructions. Like I remember there's a letter he wrote to Hasaduta Maharaj in the 1960s, where he says, my dear Hasaduta, I'm so proud that you're doing so well in Germany, and you can tell Bhakta Gunther that he will now be Gadadhar Das, and I will accept his discipleship. As per your doubt regarding the cigarette factory, no, I do not think it is a good idea for our devotees to work in a cigarette factory. You know, and that always struck me. Like, who thought it was a good idea that the devotees would work in a cigarette factory? Is that Yukta Vairagya? Well, yeah, you know, they're making money. They need the money for the temple. And yeah, this is kind of what we call ugra karma, you know. Would you work in a slaughterhouse, you know? I remember Aranya Maharaj in London. I visited him once in the 1980s. I can't remember what year, maybe 85, 84, somewhere like that. And he was, I think, at Dinsdale Road, but he wanted to start a new center in the city of London proper. So we got in the car, we took the tube, I can't remember, some area around Soho. And he said, you see this area? This is going to be the biggest, you know, fastest, most commercial tourist center in the world. And I'm going to put my preaching center right here. Right here, Maharaj? No, we got to walk down and around the corner, and here it is. We got to this place where the business next door was a brothel, was a massage parlor, and the other business next door was a butcher shop. And I said, here? You're going to do this here? But why? And he said, well, you know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to save the most fallen. And, you know, who could be more fallen than a butcher shop? And who could be more fallen than prostitutes? And I said, yeah, but, you know, what about the brahmacharis? They have to walk past the hook shop every day on their way to the... I don't know what became of that project, you know, but right? But it left me scratching my head, And I visited another temple. I think it was one of Paramadwaiti Maharaj's temples in Colombia. We did a lightning tour of Colombia in like 1989 and visited 39 cities in 29 days, something like that. He had a lot of centers. And one of them was above like the Lucky Chicken, chicken fry shop, so that the whole temple room smelled like fried chicken all day, all night, and the big business downstairs was the fried chicken place. And I was just like, of course, he had a similar explanation. So was that true Yukta Vairagya? I don't feel that it's my position to say, right now, there's sannyasis in India who purport to be the new leaders and the new acharyas, without mentioning any names, but, just as the god brother of the guru, of the guru, of their guru, Just one of these individuals, I see these things on Facebook. They have this constant screed against the Western devotees that we're all basically garbage, and we have bad samskaras. No one should associate with us. And then calling each and every Western devotee out by name and rank and serial number and saying, this one did this and that one did that. And, I suppose if you're going down that route, you could say, well, opening a Hare Krishna center across from a chicken place, this is disgusting. Why would you do that? And so these Western devotees, but I don't see things like that. I don't see Western devotees and Eastern devotees, because many of the so-called Eastern devotees who now occupy, or even back in those days, occupied some important leadership role, they were from Canada, They weren't really like Hindus born in Hindulandia. They were Hindus born in Canada or Toronto or South Africa or Uganda or other places like that. But we're told that birth is not, it's not the consideration. It's guna karma vibhagashaha, chaturvarnam mayashrishtam, guna karma vibhagashaha. It's not how you're born, it's what's your quality. What do you do? So to disparage the people who created International Ratha Yatra or published Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita or created, the books that we're reading now, like Loving Surge. You can say, well, this was created by some kid from, Santa Monica, California. Why would we read that? And yet, those same people who spread, lies and calumny about the Western devotees, they're using the books that we created in San Jose, California in 1984. They don't have a problem with that, They're using those books to say, look how intelligent and great our theology is, without wanting to give any credit to anybody. So I don't know. Then again, those folks who say that we're all demons, they're doing a lot of good. They're probably pretty good preachers, and they're distributing the books that we created. So I don't know. But I'm running off at the mouth. I'm a little upset because my computer's down. You look, you're giving me some Irish pushback here.
Yeah, no, bring it in. They'll recover whatever they can from it. The experts will just zap it and recover your data.
Yeah, that's my next mission.
Document that is easy. That doesn't get zapped. You know, they're basic files. They can always pick up documents.
My old MacBook works, so I'm thinking maybe I can connect a lightning cable and run the iMac, but I don't know what a lightning cable is or where to find one, you know. Anyway, that's a very mundane concern that's important to me. But, you know, I see, like, I'll mention his name, you know, Acharya Maharaj, right? He posts a lot of stuff where he demonstrates logically and with, you know, as we say in Spanish, con lujo de detalle. He goes into great detail to demonstrate how bogus we all are. And it's like I look at that and I think, well, first of all, he's a disciple of Swarup Damodar Maharaj, not Srila Sridhar Maharaj, not Govindama, right? Second of all, his very mission, you know, the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the idea that you will establish with the scientific method any theology, it's questionable, you know. If you get back to like Nietzsche and the continental philosophers and all those folks, you know, to try to demonstrate scientifically that God exists and is a going thing. Well, good luck with that. You know, it's not, but then again, it's not really our line. That is the line of sort of secular philosophers up to kind of basic theology. You know, you have to look at Thomas Aquinas and then, I don't know, modern theologians. And the problem with modern theologians is the ones that you can look at are all Christians. And their version of God is this sort of antagonistic Judeo-Christian God. You'll find very few who can support or explain the concept of Atma. And then if you get into theology where Atma is considered, it's 95% Shankaracharya. That's what I was saying earlier in the talk. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she's the greatest theologian of the 20th century, easily, you know, after Bhaktisiddhanta. So what's your point? Are you going to try to be a better theologian than Srila Sridhar Maharaj? I don't think so. You know, the Bhaktivedanta Institute, good luck, you know. But yeah, I wish them well, but I don't like it when the idea is to shit and piss all over the Western devotees. You know, we did our bit. That's the old guys from the IRA will say when they walk in to try to get the dole, you know, someone will say, well, who are you? What have you done? I did my bit, you know, I did my thing for the Krishna consciousness movement. You can't take that away from me. And that's, I don't know, just because you own and control some property somewhere, I don't think this is a productive line of preaching, but, you know, then again, setting my own personal, you know, opinions aside, I have to give credit where credit is due. And, you know, just a man who's doing a great job pushing Sankirtan in Bengal. Good for you, you know, but have some respect for the, you know, the God brothers of the Guru, of the Guru, of the Guru, maybe. No? What do you say?
Yes, Maharaj, you said Acharya Maharaj, but it's another sannyasi because Acharya Maharaj left a few years ago.
Maharaj. Oh, no.
Shanta Maharaj.
Shanta Maharaj.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you're right. My brain is befuddled. I was thinking
No,
of
it
Shanta.
just I don't know if this is being recorded just to put things clear. And I remember the same sannyasi
Yeah,
was
thank you
bullying
for
Pranashish a few years ago.
Thank you for clarifying that. I meant, that's why I said I didn't want to mention any names. It was Bhakti Nishkama Shantam Maharaj. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Bhakti
Yeah.
Nishkama Shanta Maharaj. And his name oddly means no desire for peace or love.
Wow. Interesting.
I have no desire for peace and love. Bhakti Nishkama, no desire for bhakti or shanta, love. Yeah, no, all respect to Acharya Maharaj. I think he worked very hard to continue the mission. That's why I said that the disciples of the disciples of disciples, Yeah, sorry, my bad. Anyways, that's the problem with mentioning names. But the thing is, he mentions our names. So,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's
he's gone after Sagar Maharaj, Goswami Maharaj, Avadut Maharaj, Paramidwati Maharaj, everybody. And, that's not polite. So, I'm returning the favor. Acharya Maharaj is a completely different personality. Thank you for correcting me, Adwa.
no, it was just because we all sleep and sometimes say wrong name here and there, and I don't want people to start a war over nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, I got confused because this person represents himself as the Acharya. See, so I was thinking.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't want to leave on a sour note, but it's been about an hour, and I really have to go. So, thank you all very much for tuning in.
Dandavad.
Right, Dandavats and
Dandavat,
Hare Krishna.
everybody.
Maybe my computer will be working next week, and I can see all of you better.